Backwood TV, Stammer Kid out there live, you know. Them if you don't say, yo, we are kicking ball and we foot knock you around them in Midland.
Yo, I want TV, man, Backbush control. Them are run for the hill, so we're not going to Backbush TV. What that true?
Big ball game in the stadium. Fresh pair of boots, so we step on the ground. Gyal a blow whistle when the and them a come. Team fully done spot, none of we know them.
And now is them a make that team the ref know them. Drop the ball and we're gonna kill on them. Come around, rush out,
Backbush TV, like and subscribe. And big up to all of my subscribers them. And today we are just jump straight into that video here. Where we see Bob Marley. People them not say really high to him. You know what I mean? People like him, good bridging them from back in the days where him and them build the thing, and then, you know, money issues make him and them now really say eye to eye. So Backbush TV, like and subscribe. We just jump in it and catch the mix up, because you don't see it at the legend Bob Marley, and we never know say all of this propaganda did dip on the road. But we're going out and here we're going. Mad.
Smile and the global hits. There were reggae artists who had serious beef with the legend. Some felt betrayed, others overshadowed, and a few downright disrespected him, both during his life and after his passing. In this video, we're diving into the stories of 12 reggae stars who had a bone to pick with Bob Marley. Get ready for some surprising feuds and fiery words. Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh and Bob Marley were once brothers in rhythm, founding the Wailers alongside Bunny Wailer in the early 1960s. Together, they shaped a sound that carried Jamaica's voice to the world. But as the group climbed higher, fault lines began to crack the foundation, and those cracks eventually turned into a bitter divide. When the Wailers broke apart in the mid-1970s, each member chose his own road. Marley moved toward international stardom with Island Records, promoted as the face of reggae under the new banner Bob Marley and the Wailers. Tosh, however, saw this as a betrayal of their unity and Rastafarian ideals. He felt sidelined, his voice drowned out by the industry's heavy push to crown Marley as reggae's global ambassador. To make matters worse, Tosh believed the label favored Marley because of his lighter complexion and marketable image, a painful reminder of the color politics still rooted in the music industry. Their disagreements weren't just simmering in the background. In 1973, during a promotional tour, tensions boiled over into an actual backstage fistfight. It was a moment that underscored how far the two had drifted apart. Tosh's solo career afterward took on a much more militant tone, with songs like Equal Rights and Legalize It carrying a sharper edge than Marley's more broadly appealing anthems. Perhaps the most symbolic moment of their rift came in 1981, when Bob Marley passed away. While much of the reggae world gathered to mourn, Peter Tosh was absent. Critics saw this as cold, but Tosh insisted his Rastafarian faith didn't embrace funerals in the traditional sense. For him, death wasn't to be mourned, but acknowledged as part of the cycle of life. Even with the bitterness, the connection between Marley and Tosh can't be reduced to just anger. They were brothers in music first, collaborators who built the foundation of reggae together. Their falling out remains one of reggae's defining stories, a reminder of how creative ambition, industry politics, and personal conviction can turn partners into rivals. Bunny Wailer. Bunny Wailer, one of the founding voices of the Wailers, carried a complicated mix of love, frustration, and disappointment when it came to Bob Marley. While the two once shared a deep creative bond, Bunny grew increasingly distant as Marley rose to global fame. To Bunny, that fame didn't just belong to Marley, it belonged to the group, and the industry's decision to single out Bob left lasting scars. The breaking point came in the mid-1970s. Record executive Chris Blackwell, the head of Island Records, made Marley the face of reggae on the international stage. Posters, albums, and tours now read Bob Marley and the Wailers, a move that left Bunny and Peter Tosh sidelined. Some even suggested Blackwell chose Marley because he believed audiences in Europe and America would connect with him more easily. Whatever the reason, Bunny saw it as the music industry reshaping their collective voice into Marley's personal brand. Rather than accept the new arrangement, Bunny chose his own path. He walked away from touring altogether, uncomfortable with the lifestyle and the compromises he believed it demanded. His solo career leaned heavily on the spiritual and cultural core of reggae, staying true to Rastafarian principles and resent. The divide was never healed. When Marley died in 1981, the world came together to mourn, but Bunny was not there. For many, his absence was shocking, even offensive, but for Bunny, it was about faith. As a Rastafarian, he rejected the Western idea of funerals and grieving. To him, celebrating Marley's life meant keeping his message alive through music, not standing at a graveside. Even without direct clashes, the space between Bunny and Marley grew into one of reggae's most talked about rifts. It wasn't about hatred, but about ideology, pride, and a refusal to compromise. Bunny Wailer never stopped respecting Marley's talent, but he refused to accept the industry's rewriting of their story. In his eyes, the heart of the Wailers wasn't about one man's face on a poster, it was about the collective spirit they had built together. Vincent Ford. What if one of Bob Marley's biggest songs was never really about the music, but about feeding hungry people? That's the twist in the story of Vincent Ford, a man tied forever to Marley through the credits of the timeless anthem, No Woman, No Cry. To the casual fan, Ford might seem like just another songwriter. In truth, his name on the record label was less about fame and more about survival, specifically survival for the people of Trenchtown. Ford ran a soup kitchen in one of Kingston's poorest neighborhoods, the same streets where Marley grew up. By giving Ford official credit for several songs, Marley ensured the royalties went straight into funding that kitchen. Every time the song played, meals were served to people who desperately needed them. It was Marley's way of using his platform to keep his community alive, proving that music could literally put food on the table. But good intentions don't always come without complications. Years later, Danny Sims, Marley's former manager, and his company, Cayman Music, dragged the matter into court. Their argument? Marley had purposely credited Ford as a way to dodge contractual obligations and keep Cayman from profiting off certain tracks. In other words, the songwriting credit was less about generosity and more about avoiding legal ties. The case went before the courts in 1987, and things got messy. Testimony revealed that Marley had indeed shifted credits in part to escape that contract. Even so, the decision ultimately favored Marley's estate, granting them control of the songs and closing the door on Cayman's claims. Still, the controversy left questions hanging in the air. Did Marley truly act out of selfless loyalty to his community, or was it also a savvy move to protect his own interests from industry exploitation? The answer is probably both. For Ford, however, the credit meant more than royalties. It was proof of a lifelong friendship and a reminder that Marley never forgot his roots. Even if the legal side remains tangled, what sticks is the image of Ford's soup kitchen, funded by a song that still echoes around the globe, a quiet act of resistance and generosity wrapped inside a reggae classic. Burning Spear. Burning Spear, born Winston Rodney, is one of the most respected voices in roots reggae. He and Bob Marley actually shared much more than music. Both men came from St. Ann's Bay, and both carried a strong influence from Marcus Garvey, shaping their lyrics into powerful messages of resistance and pride. Their connection was genuine. In fact, Marley was the one who told Spear to head to Studio One, a move that kicked off his recording career. Without that advice, Spear's path to reggae history might have been very different. So, how did people get the idea these two were at odds? It wasn't Marley at all. The tension came from a separate falling out between Spear and his drummer, Horsemouth, in the late 1970s. The story goes that a disagreement spiraled out of control, fueled by egos and misunderstandings. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and it ended with a heated confrontation. Spear swore off working with Horsemouth after that, effectively cutting ties. Over time, some fans and observers blurred the lines, mistakenly linking this drama with Marley. Add in the fact that Spear occasionally expressed frustration about how Marley's international fame tended to eclipse other reggae artists, and suddenly the narrative of a feud was born. In truth, those feelings weren't about personal betrayal, they were about the minimizing others. It's easy to see how rumors grew legs, but the evidence points to a different reality. Marley was a mentor, not a rival. Spear himself continued to carve out his own powerful career, always staying true to his uncompromising vision of reggae as a spiritual and political force. The real takeaway? The supposed conflict between Burning Spear and Bob Marley says less about their relationship and more about how the reggae scene was interpreted by outsiders hungry for drama. While there were frustrations about recognition, the bond they shared from St. Ann's Bay to Studio One shows Marley's role as a guide and ally, not an enemy. Toots Hibbert. Few rivalries in music are as fascinating as the one between Frederick Toots Hibbert and Bob Marley. At the heart of their tension was not fame or personal grudges, but a deeper question about reggae's very origins. Hibbert, frontman of Toots and the Maytals, proudly declared himself the man who gave reggae its name. In 1968, he released the track Do the Reggae, a song that not only became a hit, but also marked the first recorded use of the word reggae to describe Jamaica's evolving sound. For Hibbert, that moment cemented his place as reggae's linguistic father. But as the 1970s unfolded, Marley's star power grew far beyond Jamaica. His music traveled across oceans, introducing reggae to audiences in Europe, America, and Africa. With that global rise came the perception that Marley was reggae's sole pioneer, overshadowing Hibbert's earlier contribution. While Marley was often celebrated as the genre's international face, Hibbert reminded fans and journalists that without Do the Reggae, the name itself might not exist. This claim fueled a subtle rivalry, one that never erupted into open hostility but remained an undercurrent in reggae history. Hibbert wasn't trying to diminish Marley's influence, after all. Both men deeply respected the music and the culture that birthed it. Instead, he sought recognition for his foundational role. For Hibbert, being remembered as the originator of the word reggae was not just a matter of pride, but of historical accuracy. Fans and critics have debated the matter for decades. Was Hibbert truly the one who gave the genre its name, or would the word have emerged naturally as the music evolved? While no definitive answer exists, Hibbert's insistence ensured his name remained tied to reggae's identity. Meanwhile, Marley's unparalleled reach secured his place as reggae's ambassador to the world. In the end, the Hibbert-Marley dynamic illustrates how music history is shaped by both invention and reinvention, by those who coin the terms and those who carry them across the globe. Hibbert may not have achieved Marley's level of fame, but his role in naming reggae remains an undeniable part of the genre's DNA. Scratch Perry. In the late 1960s and early 70s, Perry was one of Jamaica's most experimental producers, known for bending sound itself with his otherworldly dub techniques. Marley and the Wailers found in him not just a collaborator, but a visionary who could elevate their raw energy into something entirely new. Together they recorded tracks like Duppy Conqueror and the Soul Rebels album, music that helped propel Marley's rise. But beneath the surface of this groundbreaking collaboration, money became a flashpoint. Perry claimed there was no official contract and insisted he could only pay a sliver of the record sales, roughly 10 cents a copy. The Wailers, expecting a fairer split, felt cheated. What began as a disagreement over accounting escalated into a heated argument one night at Kingston's Sombrero Club. Tensions boiled over, furniture was overturned, words were shouted, and for a moment it seemed fists might fly. Marley, ever the peacemaker, tried to calm things down, but the damage was done. By 1973, the Wailers had walked away from Perry's camp and signed with Chris Blackwell at Island Records, setting Marley on the road to international superstardom. Perry, meanwhile, poured his energies into other projects, pioneering dub music and reshaping studio production into an art form all its own. Yet, despite the bitterness of that fallout, the story didn't end in animosity. Over time, Marley and Perry reconciled, their mutual respect closely again, but the bond of shared history and creative kinship remained intact. Looking back, the clash between Marley and Perry wasn't just about royalties. It reflected the struggles of Jamaican artists navigating a music industry that often undervalued their labor while profiting from their genius. Perry's innovations in dub and Marley's global reach were two sides of the same coin, both essential in spreading reggae far beyond the shores of Jamaica. In the end, their feud is remembered less for the fight in a nightclub and more for the masterpieces they created before things went sour, works that still echo through reggae and hip-hop today. Steel Pulse. What happens when the torchbearers of a genre feel it's being reshaped for mass appeal? For Steel Pulse, one of Britain's most influential reggae groups, that question often lingered in the air when Bob Marley's name came up. Marley was more than a musician, he was a movement. By the late 1970s, his songs weren't just echoing through Jamaican dance halls, they were blasting on radios across Europe and America. To Steel Pulse, this global wave was inspiring, but it also raised concerns. They feared reggae was being softened, polished, and packaged to satisfy mainstream audiences, drifting away from its raw, revolutionary roots. Despite these philosophical differences, the band held Marley in high regard. In 1978, they landed what would become a career-shaping opportunity, joining Bob Marley and the Wailers on a 12-date European tour. For a young UK-based reggae act, it was like being handed the keys to the kingdom. The tour didn't just give them exposure, it taught them discipline, professionalism, and the stamina required to survive the relentless pace of international performances. Marley's presence drew sold-out crowds, and Steel Pulse found themselves swept along in his powerful current. David Hines, Steel Pulse's frontman, often spoke with deep appreciation about Marley's influence. He recalled how Marley's backing helped fill venues, and even revealed that Marley had plans to bring Steel Pulse onto his own record label. Far from being adversaries, there was admiration and gratitude running both ways. But with admiration came reflection. Hines later admitted his regret over not visiting Marley in the hospital before his passing in 1981, a moment of personal loss that underscored the depth of their connection. Whatever disagreements they might have had about reggae's commercialization were secondary to the bond forged on the road and through their shared love of the music. Steel Pulse's relationship with Marley is less about rivalry and more about a dialogue, how to honor reggae's cultural roots while also embracing its global potential. It's a reminder that even when artists see the path differently, respect and inspiration can coexist, shaping the future of a movement together. Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd, born Alexander Hughes, wasn't Jamaican. He was a British DJ and performer who carved out his own place in reggae and ska during the 1970s. Known for his raunchy, tongue-in-cheek lyrics, he became the first white artist to score a reggae hit in Jamaica, a surprising feat that gave him a kind of cult notoriety. But where Marley's music was steeped in spirituality, political struggle, and Rastafarian ideals, Judge Dredd leaned into comedy, double entendres, and exaggerated storytelling. The contrast couldn't have been sharper. For some, Dredd's success was viewed as cultural borrowing that didn't fully honor the roots of reggae. His lighthearted approach and provocative lyrics often clashed with the seriousness of Marley's catalog, which spoke to oppression, liberation, and faith. While there wasn't an actual feud between the two men, the comparison often created tension among fans and critics, especially as both found success in the UK during the 1970s. The numbers tell an important part of the story. Despite Judge Dredd's popularity, Marley outsold him in Britain. Marley's albums like Exodus and Kaya became global touchstones, ensuring that his version of reggae defined the genre for international audiences. Judge Dredd may have broken barriers as a white reggae artist, but his notoriety never reached Marley's iconic status. It's also worth noting that most of Marley's real rivalries were rooted in the Jamaican music scene itself. One notable example was his clash with producer 90 The Observer in the early 1970s, a rivalry believed to have been fueled by outside figures eager to pit two young talents against each other. Compared to that, Judge Dredd's supposed feud with Marley was more a cultural talking point than an actual conflict. In the end, Judge Dredd brought humor and shock value to reggae, while Marley carried its spirit to the world stage. Their differences highlight the genre's versatility and the tension between using music for entertainment versus using it for empowerment. When the beat drops and the crowd starts chanting, you know Shaggy is about to light up the room. But what happens when the glow of commercial success casts shadows of controversy? That's exactly the space Shaggy found himself in, when his remarks about Bob Marley stirred unexpected debate in reggae circles. Over the years, Shaggy has faced criticism from purists who accuse him of watering down reggae's roots for mainstream appeal. For some, his blend of dancehall and pop-friendly hooks has felt more like crossover than cultural preservation. Shaggy, however, sees things differently. He's pointed out that even Bob Marley, the global face of reggae, wasn't immune to accusations of selling out during his lifetime. In his view, the clash between artistic integrity and commercial success is as old as reggae itself. That context made his 2005 interview with The Guardian especially memorable. Reflecting on his career milestones, Shaggy noted that his 2001 album Hot Shot had sold more units than any single Bob Marley record, earning him the rare diamond certification. It was a statement of fact, rooted in sales numbers, but it was delivered with the kind of cheeky bravado that fuels headlines. The trouble was, some fans and critics interpreted it as arrogance or even disrespect toward Marley, a towering cultural figure who passed away in 1981, long before Shaggy's rise. The comparison seemed odd to many, not least because their careers existed in entirely different eras of the music industry. While Marley's legacy was built in a time when reggae was still finding international footing, Shaggy benefited from a far more globalized market and the rise of MTV. At its core, though, Shaggy's remark wasn't an attack. It was a reflection on how artists are measured. Numbers tell one story, but legacy tells another. Marley's music still resonates worldwide as spiritual and political anthems, while Shaggy's playful hits dominate playlists and party soundtracks. Both artists, in their own ways, demonstrate the power of reggae to evolve and reach across generations. In the end, what looked like a feud was really just a misunderstanding amplified by perception. The music, as always, speaks louder than the sound bites. Desmond Dekker. Even pioneers can feel eclipsed when a legend rises. Desmond Dekker knew that firsthand. Desmond Dekker wasn't just any reggae artist. He was one of the first Jamaican musicians to break through internationally, paving the way for the genre to reach global audiences. Songs like Israelites introduced the world to the rhythms and stories of Kingston, bringing Jamaican music into living rooms from London to New York. Yet, as Bob Marley's star ascended in the 1970s, Dekker reportedly experienced the challenging side of fame, feeling overshadowed by the new global face of reggae. While there's no documented feud between Dekker and Marley, whispers of tension have circulated among fans and music historians. Dekker's earlier success and Marley's meteoric rise created a situation where comparisons were inevitable. It's not uncommon in music for artists who trailblaze a genre to feel sidelined when someone else's fame becomes the defining image of that movement. In this case, Marley's international acclaim may have unintentionally cast a shadow over Dekker's groundbreaking achievements. Despite this perceived rivalry, both musicians contributed to reggae in meaningful, lasting ways. Dekker's early recordings helped lay the foundation for reggae's global reach, and Marley's work expanded that foundation into an empire of cultural and spiritual influence. Their careers intersected not with direct conflict, but through the natural dynamics of recognition, timing, and market attention. Dekker's experience highlights a recurring theme in music. The first to break through doesn't always get the lasting spotlight, yet his impact cannot be measured solely by chart positions or album sales. Dekker's innovations influenced countless artists, inspiring the next wave of reggae musicians who would follow Marley and expand the genre further. In retrospect, any tension between Dekker and Marley seems less like personal animosity and more like a story of two artists. Dekker helped open the door, Marley walked through it and carried reggae to unprecedented heights. Both left indelible marks, demonstrating that the legacy of a genre is never the work of a single individual, but a collective of voices and visions. Big Youth. Rising to prominence in the 1970s, Big Youth became known for his radical toasting style, blending sharp social commentary with Rastafarian philosophy. His tracks addressed poverty, oppression, and injustice, aiming to awaken listeners and provoke thought. To him, reggae was a tool for empowerment, a way to speak truth to power, not just fill dance floors. Marley, meanwhile, was achieving unprecedented international stardom. His music, while rooted in similar spiritual and social themes, had expanded to reach mainstream audiences worldwide. Chart-topping albums and global tours brought reggae to millions, but to Big Youth, this success came at a cost. He felt that Marley's work had softened, its revolutionary edge diluted by commercial pressures and the need to appeal to international markets. This difference in philosophy created friction. Big Youth openly critiqued Marley, suggesting that the commercialized path Marley had taken compromised the original spirit of reggae. It wasn't personal animosity so much as a clash of ideals, two artists interpreting the purpose of the music differently. Big Youth wanted reggae to remain a radical, uncompromising voice for change, while Marley balanced social messages with a universal appeal that could cross cultural and national boundaries. Despite these ideological tensions, both men significantly shaped reggae. Big Youth's uncompromising approach influenced a generation of politically conscious artists, while Marley's global reach ensured that the genre gained worldwide recognition. Their contrasting paths illustrate the delicate balance between maintaining authenticity and embracing broader audiences. Looking back, the tension between Big Youth and Marley highlights a recurring theme in music: the negotiation between artistic integrity and commercial opportunity. Each artist stayed true to their vision, but their differing interpretations of reggae's purpose occasionally put them at philosophical odds. Yet, both left legacies that continue to inspire, one through radical, socially aware lyrics, and the other by carrying the sound of Jamaica to the farthest corners of the globe. Junior Byles. Junior Byles carved out a reputation for his introspective, roots-heavy approach to reggae. Songs like Fade Away and Curly Locks showcased a sound steeped in reflection, spirituality, and social consciousness. His music wasn't designed for the mass market. It aimed to speak to the struggles and emotions of everyday life in Jamaica, giving listeners a more somber and contemplative perspective. Bob Marley, in contrast, was reaching audiences far beyond the island's shores. His sound, while rooted in similar spiritual and political themes, carried an infectious energy and melodic accessibility that captured the attention of a global audience. As Marley's fame soared, Byles reportedly felt that his own contributions to the genre were being overshadowed. While there's no concrete evidence of a personal feud, the difference in recognition and reach created a subtle tension. Byles's music reflected the heart of reggae's deeper messages, emphasizing struggle, faith, and resilience, often with a melancholy edge. Marley's work, while also socially conscious, balanced political commentary with universal appeal, crafting songs that could unite audiences around love, hope, and cultural pride. This contrast highlights how reggae can carry multiple interpretations, one intimate and introspective, the other broad and unifying. Despite feeling eclipsed at times, Byles never stopped shaping reggae's evolution. His tracks influenced countless artists who sought to maintain the spiritual and reflective essence of the genre, even as reggae became a global phenomenon. Meanwhile, Marley's international success helped open doors for other artists, including Byles, to gain wider recognition for their work, even if indirectly. In the end, Junior Byles' story underscores the complexity of musical legacy. Fame doesn't always reflect contribution, and influence isn't always measured by chart success. While Marley became the face of reggae worldwide, Byles' deeper, more introspective tracks ensured that the genre retained its emotional and spiritual core. Together, they represent two sides of the same coin, one reaching for global recognition, the other preserving the soulful heart of Jamaican music. From Peter Tosh's open critiques to Bunny Wailer's ideological distance, it's clear that Bob Marley's rise to global superstardom wasn't without tension. These artists weren't just jealous, they had strong visions for what reggae should represent, and sometimes Marley's international appeal clashed with their ideals. Tosh pushed boundaries with his militant stance, while Bunny Wailer focused on preserving the spiritual purity of their music. Even artists like Big Youth and Junior Byles expressed concern that reggae was being softened for mainstream audiences, showing that creative differences can be just as charged as personal ones. Then there are the less direct conflicts, like Lee Scratch Perry's financial disputes or Toots Hibbert staking his claim to reggae's origins. Even Shaggy, decades later, would reflect on the balance between artistic integrity and commercial success, echoing some of the same tensions Marley faced in his lifetime. Each instance, whether philosophical, professional, or personal, highlights how the music industry and fame itself can complicate relationships between artists. But beyond the disputes, one thing is clear: every one of these artists contributed to reggae's richness. Their disagreements with Marley didn't diminish his impact, nor did they erase the value of their own work. Instead, they remind us that music is a living, evolving force, shaped
I mean, I said I'm gonna answer about this thing they represent for Bush TV, you know. You understand? Make sure so, you know, tune in. Bush TV, Rising King, so.
Man.